Hello and welcome to episode 34 of Creating a New World, uh, the world about the show about the 12 Visions world, a world of wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom that you can help create. My name is Bill Hunsaker and I'm your host. And I'd like to welcome my two co-hosts. First of all, Bob McCaffrey. Thank you for coming on the show, Bob.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me, Bill.
And also, I'd like to thank Sage Katakura.
Hi, Bill. Yeah, then my pleasure. It's good to be here. Hi, Bob.
Good morning, Sage.
Good morning.
On today's show, first of all, we're going to look at what elections will look like in the 12 Visions world. Then if we don't get really heavy into that and we have time, we'll have a game of Where's the Force? And then in the Creating the 12 Visions world section, we'll continue our discussion of the 12 Visions Party national platform with the section titled Tariffs on page 36 of the national platform, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you can become involved and how you can help create the 12 Visions world. Okay, we'll get started with the 12 Visions world, and the topic for this discussion will be elections. And of course, the short answer is that there will be no elections in the 12 Visions world. But there's a lot behind that.
Right.
First of all, the purpose of the 12 Visions Party is to depoliticize America and the world eventually. And part of that is that, and the way we will be going about that is by, first of all, reducing the federal government and the state governments and even your local governments to their only valid purpose, which is protection of the individual from initiatory force. And once that is accomplished, and once the prime law is passed as an amendment to the Constitution and becomes the law of the land, then it will be illegal for any government at any level to take taxes by force. And therefore, we will have basically no longer have what is now considered a government. We will have a basically a business that provides protection, and that business will grow and evolve as conditions change. Initially, it will provide protection both for the individual and the country, while we have other countries around the world that still have governments. And then, once all the countries around the world have also converted their governments to protection-only businesses, then it will only provide protection for the individual. And there will be other companies that will also provide the same service, and therefore there will be competition. And once that occurs, there will be no more elections because there will no longer be a need.
Right. And that's a great way to explain it, Bill. It's not that we're just going to stop elections. Somebody's voted in power and it's kept there. I'm talking to all the people that don't know anything about the 12 Visions Party. It's very methodical, and it's all about putting that prime law in place, removing initiatory force. And once that's done, you really just have the only valid purpose of government, which is to spend publicly taken money without choice to pay for the justice system, courts, and protection, the police forces. And all the other forces would not be taxed. It wouldn't be forced to you to start. And from there, you would have only you wouldn't have these politicians anymore looking for office. You'd have that first segment, that first president that was elected under the TPP platform, and he would pass the protection-only budget, approving only costs for public defense. I mean, defense. And from there, the elections will die at some point. I think right away, if you once you start doing that, we're betting it all on the platform. Once that's passed, the protection only budget, that you don't have that the benefits show up for the public to see suddenly, where you.
Of course, you mean the prime law, Sage.
Uh, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I was thinking in the platform, the protection only budget passes
Mm-hmm.
first, and then it shows glimpses. Everybody sees this solar eclipse type example. When I say solar eclipse, I just mean they see this aha moment that all this bogus spending of the government and purposes of the government for the public, so-called public good, government on the offense, so to speak, that would be taken out, and then people would see that it works. This thing is boon to society, and then everybody would be open to passing the prime law then in its entirety, and that's what the platform lays out, and hopefully it falls like dominoes in that way. But um, the elections would die somewhere along that path. Elections would stop also, um, and and it's really just you have the president, TVP president in office by contract just to pass those, just to follow that procedure to make that happen. And uh, initiatory force would be limited less and less. It would be removed. And then elections wouldn't be needed. The necessity of elections wouldn't be needed because now you have individuals able to live independently for themselves, fully protected from initiatory force.
Yes, and in addition to that, as the once the prime law is passed, then the president and TVP members of the Congress, as well as other members who have, joined us, will go through the process of converting the federal government from a force-backed
Right.
uh, entity to a business where people voluntarily pay for the services.
Right. And that competitive environment is what works in reality. And you see all the other government institutions like the post office holding, it barely holds its own or stays afloat compared to the private enterprises, that people voluntarily have to pay for. They can, and the post office is voluntary also, but it gets a lot of funding also to help it.
Yes, it's a quasi-governmental
Yes.
business. It's supposedly privatized, but it's still funded by the government.
Yeah, it's grand. So, and that lack of competitive edge as a business owner, I would be resting on my laurels a lot more if I had that to count on, and
Mhm.
and it just flows through so naturally with this concept of initiatory free government in place.
And of course the other side of it will be that individuals will have choice. Will have a choice of what level of protection they want to have because there will be businesses providing all levels of protection at all levels of cost.
Right,
So that
exactly.
hmm
There's free
and
competition, and it's not just one source either. It's not going to be this one entity, government entity, giving you business defense,
hmm
and you only have that choice. It's going to kind of be like a splitting off of different competitive businesses and able to compete for your protection.
yes, it'll be the same thing. All the areas that government has taken over will be converted to private businesses. First, those areas that aren't for protection, such as education, um, uh, transportation.
Right.
You know.
Maybe transportation, taking care of the roadways and the upkeep
hmm
there. Yeah. Um, all that will be just, I think of the private protection companies like ADT and Sloman, and then there's GuardMe, and those places. I love that I don't have to pay taxes and get their protection on my house. I can choose to take my house and just go without it, without those monthly fees. I can take I can get ADT. You don't hear too many complaints from those companies, and if you do, they leave and go to another competitor, and they pay voluntarily their money, and it keeps it so fair, square, and tip-top services because those companies, I've seen them because a lot of my friends have those on their houses, and they just they get web surveillance. They can put in their punch code when they leave. They get notified on their phones if somebody's even touching their house, if they're touching their door, and that's the type of that's from a service that pays maybe $100 a month, maybe $200 a month. But that's so cool. It's not required, and it's if you want that service, you can pay for it, and they're pretty happy. I see the value exchange there for the money that they're spending. And I know it sounds very boring, but that's if you could, why cannot the government follow that same pattern? It can. It's just a new concept, you know.
Yeah, and unfortunately, any organization based on the idea of initiatory force that has the ability to force you to do something, such as pay taxes, or you know, any government, any organization that can do that can, can
Yeah,
basically create a monopoly for itself and then provide whatever level of service it wants and choose whatever cost it wants to create for that level of service, rather than having competition, which naturally drives costs down and naturally increases the level of service that you're receiving
right,
or the quality of the goods that you're receiving.
right. And
And
oh, yeah,
unfortunately now our protection uh, facilities are more enforcing the laws than they are protecting.
Hmm.
that's true. Yeah, right.
It's
It's
supposed
more.
to be the individual is innocent until proven guilty, but under the current system, you're guilty and you have to prove you're innocent.
Yeah, and a lot of it is political. There's a huge portion that's politically imprisoned for their ideas.
Hmm.
Um, and they're also the tax people that don't pay taxes are constantly getting force and punishments laid on them, and that's just because they didn't give the revenue for this machine to keep on going, you
Hmm.
know, which is diabolical.
Unfortunately, I was having a discussion with somebody yesterday, and one of the things that we brought up is, unfortunately, there are a lot of sick people that are in the prison systems uh, that really shouldn't even be there. They should be in some kind of a mental institution or something like that. But unfortunately, the way the laws are set up, they wind up in the prison system, and the prison system's really not set up to handle them. They're not set up to where they can help them to change and become better people. And basically, they say in the same system. And one of the things that was indicated to me is a certain individual that was in there for taking a particular drug. Her primary goal was to just get out and be able to get that drug again. She wasn't interested in being cured or you know having help.
Yeah,
And you know,
that makes me think of another thing about like choice. People have to admit they'll have choices, and that's good, and it also puts self-responsibility to
yeah,
people, and
Hmm.
that's still there. There's no we have all these illusions that it's not there. We still have all the self-responsibilities there. They just we have to now we're paying all these things, or we have to go to jail, and all those types of things when told for whatever reason that lawmakers decide, and it, it's just that person. All these things are connected also, and when people are when the government and industry forces lessen, that self-responsibility will come in the spotlight, and it's a we're all. I think people will wake up and realize they enjoy self-responsibility because they could see the benefits of it more, and the society also, like the platform points to, there are people that are doing things so well. James J. Hill, that story, he just had he was so efficient at creating values, and that was raising the standard of living. And with those few people going along unrestricted, it helps the whole so much. If you have more Bill Gates in the world, or Steve Jobs in the world, contributing value, not so much that particular individual with all their personalities, but it helps everybody, and it encourages self responsibility. Like that lady that didn't want to she wanted to get out of jail and just do the drug again. To me, it's like she just wasn't inspired enough. And these conditions also, on a very psychological level, encourage uh, inspiration, with each individual, I think, because you have people doing what they were without force. They have to kind of find themselves and do what they want to do truly, and even if they want to sit on their tails, they can do that. But it allows for people kind of to grow up in a sense.
Yes, and also another aspect of this is that by definition you cannot inflict initiatory force on yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of laws we have today are attempting to protect people from themselves, including all the drug laws that we've discussed briefly, and a lot of other laws.
Right.
Laws concerning alcohol, which is a legal drug, and all those
Yeah.
things are attempts to protect someone from themselves. Whereas, when you try to protect someone from themselves, you're also removing, as you said, self-responsibility. And you remove the consequences of their actions, or create other consequences that aren't directly related to their actions, so that there's a disconnect, and they never make the connection that
Right.
what the true consequences are of their actions, and
Hey.
take responsibility for those decisions and the actions they take in light of them. You were going to say something, Bob?
Yeah, some of those drugs are very, very addictive. And one particular drug that was mentioned when we were talking, the drug has an effect where the first time you take it, you get a fantastic high. But the thing is, in taking it after that point, you never reach that high again. So the individual is always chasing that particular high, looking to get it again, which they can never achieve because it just doesn't happen. And that's where the addiction comes in. They keep
Mm-hmm.
chasing that high, and doesn't happen.
Or as with other drugs, it just takes more to get that same level of high,
Yeah,
and eventually they reach the point where they basically their
destroyed it.
body can't can't handle the amount of the drug that they're taking to try to achieve that high, and they get an overdose, and they're either severely injured or they die.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate, but the bottom line is, when you have a society where basically people are told from the time they're children that they aren't responsible for their actions, that other people are responsible, that the government's going to take care of them and protect them from themselves,
mhm,
then you get people who don't take responsibility for their
Right.
actions, and
Yeah.
also simply do not understand that what is happening to them is a direct consequence of their decisions and actions.
yeah,
Yeah. That's so healthy and so important, just from growing up and the raising I've had, just understanding that connection. It's such a powerful concept, and this encourages that. And
Hmm.
also the even, let's say, the rehabilitation centers out there in this type of environment without forced back taxes. Imagine those good ones that had all that profit to pour back in their businesses. They could have, you'd say there's some people that would say, well, those owners can be just more wealthy. But what happens in a lot of businesses is they pour the money back, they reinvest it into the business, a lot of them, while making more, because they're thinking long term to grow their profits more and more eventually. And
Hmm.
those are the most of the business owners I've met. And if you had that, you'd have these good, really awesome services to help these individuals that do have that need help or aren't taking as much self-responsibility and could use a little lift. So you have that added benefit from this environment too, and it's uh it's giving you better options over time, you know, across the board.
Yeah, and just to bring this around to the topic we've been discussing, I mean, in a way, voting perpetuates that idea that you know, if I vote, then I'm not responsible for what happens. You know, I voted. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah, right.
I've done my civic duty, and then whatever happens after that, I'm not responsible. You know, you know,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
all.
people
Yeah.
say, you know, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. No, I have a right to complain about how you voted. You know, and a right to complain about what's happening because of this system that perpetuates the idea that a small group of people can decide for everyone and can decide what portion of your income to keep and you know what you can
Exactly.
do and what you can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so exciting. Guys, we've been doing this for 3,000 years. Everybody's been doing this and it's just a habit. But just imagine it not. Imagine that circumstance and the world that you could have that way. It'd be really weird for a lot of people to start, but I think, with technology, people are getting more independent, more thinking, what's really the meaning of things. And that's encouraging going to these starting to open people's minds to this concept of
Hmm.
you know what, I can do it myself, I can deal with it myself, I can be responsible for myself, and uh, good lord, that's so fun. I can create what I want to create, and face the consequences and do better from those results.
Yeah, true freedom doesn't come from government, doesn't come from you know, it comes from taking 100% responsibility for your life and deciding for yourself rather than delegating those decisions to others.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
and so there's that. You could look at it from the technical side and the policy side to create this environment, and it works so well with that psychological concept you just said, Bill, which is so it's like it's like a law with people. It's just a constant almost, that that principle you just said,
Hmm.
that people, there's real to get real freedom. It's a personal development thing, and this sets the conditions forth perfectly. They marriage each other perfectly for doing that. And man, what a world!
Okay, thank you very much, Sage. Thank you, Bob. We'll move on to the next section, which is Where's the Force?
Cool.
Uh, and today's topic, going along with what we already discussed, is voting.
Wow.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with you, Bob. Bob, where's the Force?
The force in voting is supposedly, if you don't vote, you're not putting your voice into the system. You're not helping yourself to get you what you want, as if that was going to get you everything that you want. Uh, you're looking for people that are telling you, oh, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, we're going to allow this, and you're voting for them, and then it never happens anyway. So that's where the force is. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's amazing.
thank you, Bob. Sage, where's the Force?
I see it, Bill, as when you're forced. Basically, it's the democracy where you're forced to follow. If you didn't vote for somebody, you individually did not agree with somebody, you vote, and the majority winner takes it, and that is, you're forced to follow that person. So there's force right there, and it shouldn't be that way. The other thing is, once that person is in power, the machine continues, the tax machine, and they force you to pay taxes, and that person has a lot of say in what happens with that, all that tax funding. So there's so much force there that trickles down to levels of everybody's lives in the smallest areas, and it creates conditions for the world we live in today, which is challenging.
Yes, and of course I agree with 100% with all that you said. In addition, um, voting is a supposedly a right that's available to anyone who hasn't lost that right by under our laws hasn't lost that right because of their choices and actions.
Right.
In other words, criminal activity that is harmful to others. That's the idea of the law. But in several places, even today, they scheme to find ways to take that right away from people, such as I believe it was in Mississippi or Alabama. They passed a law that you had to have some kind of government issued photo ID in order to vote. And then they closed all the motor vehicle centers in counties that were predominantly black, therefore making it very difficult for poor black people to get those government issued photo IDs.
So it's just catch-22 a little bit.
Right, and if we didn't have this system, there would be no way you could, commit that kind of initiatory force, basically, taking away people's ability to at least influence, the effect of government on their lives.
Yes, right. And I'm guessing the political side, political prisoners that are charged criminally for, let's say, questionable activities. Those guys have less say also.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, I'm not sure what which rights are taken away from them. But if that's the case, also, it's just it doesn't really. It's unfair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking.
So
If you're incarcerated, they don't set up any way that you can do voting at the prison or anything. So
while
how
you're
are
at
you going to vote if you're incarcerated?
I meant after you are removed. I don't know how that works, if you're removed permanently or they put like long time restrictions on.
I think it depends on what particular law you've broken. I think if you violate federal law, then your loss of voting privilege is permanent. But I don't know for certain the details of this, and have no desire to find out, actually.
Right.
So thank you very much. That was interesting, and to the point. I knew it would be brief because it's not a complicated subject as far as I can tell, other than,
Right.
if you want to get into the idea of whether or not voting actually gives you power or causes you to lose power by delegating it to other people.
And I think of that, that concept. And to me, I like to listen to other people what their concepts are, but I just feel like if you're advanced to the point where you're okay with making decisions for yourself, most people are not. They're not there yet, or it's so novel to them, and they need elections, and they're still in this mindset that they're absolutely needed, and they give them a voice and a chance.
Yeah, it's basically they've been taught from childhood, and they have this. Basically, it's an illusion that you're having an effect on things that directly affect your life, such as how much taxes are taken, what laws are passed, et cetera, et cetera. But it's an illusion because the individuals that you elect, even if you vote for them, they are not necessarily going to do what they told you they were going to do, and they're definitely not going to do what you wanted them to do in every instance. And if you didn't vote for them, then you're just out in the cold. You don't have any recourse. We have. I mean, I think rightly so. Democracy has been described as the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way, and now you're talking about a concept of individuals just functioning as separate entities and having a law that it just protects that individual, and that's so like, no way. What at first it's like, oh, no way.
Even further than that, Sage, the concept of people voluntarily interacting with each other and contracting with each other rather than doing things because they're forced to do it.
Right. And times are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Where that concept is, we're talking about that concept here, and keep going it over to your mind. I have been for years, and the more and there's a lot of publications out there you can read of humming along these same lines that they're getting to, that we could. It's not really necessary. Why do we,
Hmm.
why do we keep doing it? Because it's done. Because it takes a lot of effort. Because I don't know. I'm not interested. And
And unfortunately, government has grown to the point where its primary purpose is to perpetuate itself. It's not there really to do what it was originally intended to do. It's just there to protect, to perpetuate and preserve itself, and to grow.
and that's like an illusion. It's like a parasite that the bottom line is what value it provides,
Hmm.
and it keeps taking resources to function,
Yeah.
and the values coming out of it are not helping. They're not valuable. People wouldn't pay for them if they had a choice.
Yeah. Government doesn't produce anything or create anything. It only takes from some people and gives to others, and takes a chunk of what it takes through that. And again, we talk about government like it's a single entity, but it's not. It's a group of individuals, and some individuals are really trying to help people, and some individuals are just there to help themselves. And it's But unfortunately, the ones that are just there to help themselves pretend that they're there to help others, and it's hard to tell based on their actions what their true intentions are. And
Right.
and when you have that situation, you just can't allow others to have that kind of control over your life. Bottom
Mhm.
line.
Bottom line, and like you said before, the individual growth dies from that environment because you're not making that connection of
Mhm.
responsibility, the consequences to your actions, your
Mhm.
choices.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next section, creating the 12 Visions world. And briefly, we're talking about here the 12 Visions movement and the 12 Visions Party, which is organizing that movement. Basically, the 12 Visions movement is the desire to have the world that we just discussed, the 12 Visions world, the world of wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom. Um, so we'll start our discussion of the of creating the 12 Visions world with the Prime Law. Who would like to recite it?
I'll start that off, Bill.
Okay.
The prime law, the fundamental of protection. The preamble to it, the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. The function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. The prime law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, or coercion by any person or group against any individual, property, or contract. Then there are three articles. Article 1, no person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual's self, property, or contract. Then you have Article 2, force is only morally and legally justified for protection from those who violate Article 1, who committed initiatory force. And then you have the last article, Article 3, no exceptions shall exist for Articles 1 and 2. Simple as that.
Thank you, Sage.
Sure.
And now we'll continue our discussion of the national platform. We're going to do the section on tariffs, which is on page 36. And I'm kind of in the mood this time. I haven't read in a while, so I go ahead and read it.
Cool.
Tariffs. Remember what kicked off the great boom of Hamilton America? No taxes. Hamilton America will not introduce taxes in any form. Therefore, Hamilton America imposes no tariffs. Obviously, that creates an uneven playing field for Hamilton American products that face tariffs when exporting to other countries. However, the great technological revolution occurring only in Hamilton America not only levels the playing field, but outcompetes foreign products in uniqueness, higher quality, and lower prices. Even with high tariffs, the costs of Hamilton American goods fall to fractions in most industries due to the great technological revolution, similar to what the world witnessed during the personal computer revolution. Hamilton America welcomes foreign products into the country without tariffs. Hamilton America is consumer dedicated and guarantees the conditions that bring the lowest prices and highest quality to its citizens. The secret behind Hamilton America's prosperity is the government gets out of the way and lets businesses compete for consumers. Indeed, in Hamilton America, consumers are royalty and soon live like kings. As Sister America and her politicians and bureaucrats struggle to level playing fields and gain tax revenues, American businesses continue to sink under the weight of the rising rule of man and his politically motivated laws and regulations. Here in Hamilton, America, there are no politically motivated laws and regulations, just the opposite. In fact, Hamilton, America welcomes all products from all over the world to openly compete with domestic products in order to bring the highest quality and lowest prices to the people. Hamilton, America enforces, through the prime law, a government that gets out of the way of the natural order of society to evolve and improve. The voluntary pay, protection-only government needs no tax revenue, wants no tax revenue, and has no legal authority to collect tax revenue. Therefore, the natural order of society can evolve and improve at a rapid rate, as we saw within the computer society, a microcosm of the Hamilton American society. Hamilton America takes long, sad glances at dying Sister America as her organs, her businesses, begin to fail and shut down, one after another. I mean, this basically, this description doesn't even include the idea of, competition in protecting the individual, which would enhance this even more so. And people won't be able to, basically won't be able to sell shoddy goods by undercutting people who are providing, high quality goods, because without the government interference, through tariffs as listed here, and also through regulations, et cetera, there's no way they can compete, even if they try to undercut even their own costs. And if they do that too long, they'll go out of business anyway, because they won't be covering their costs. So it's basically just a win-win for. Right. And I kind of don't like the way we talk about consumers, but it's part of the reality of the world we live in now, and it will be in that area, because people will always want things. That's the bottom line. People will always want things.
That's always the case. Even in the economy, you're hearing right now in the news, the media, of course, which is, an illusion that things are worse than ever, but people are buying stuff. You go Saturday today, if you go to the stores, people are buying stuff all over the world.
And, part of this is also that this is going to be a transition. The TVP president is not going to, as soon as the prime law is passed, or even earlier than that, is not going to go into, the Oval Office and flip a switch, and suddenly we're going to have the 12 Visions world. Now, this is going to be a long process, because our federal government and also our governments at the state and local level are so big and so intertwined with society that it's, basically we're going to be creating this as we go along, because it's something so brand new. There's never been a world where there has not been a government there, basically controlling things and telling everyone they can and cannot do, from the time of kings,
Yeah, and I think Mark Hamilton, I love how he markets to try to make the biggest progress in the short amount of time, least amount of time, because people need to be stimulated. It is going to be a process. It's not going to be immediate, but you don't tell people that. You get them excited, and he does that so well by this platform. I read it, I get enthusiastic.
But during this process, it's going to be constant improvement.
Yeah.
You know, as government is more and more extricated and removed and excised and, you know, from our lives, things are going to get better and better, and they're going to continue to get better. That's, you know, this is not going to be a painful process, except in possibly
Right.
some particular instances. Overall, it's going to be a very positive, pleasant process. But part of this is going to be the mindset with which you approach this. Because some people, unfortunately, are going to, you know, say, but, you know, I need that. That's, you know, I can't give that up. I can't do anything else, because they don't have the mindset to understand that they can do something else, that they can take, you know, actions that will positively affect their lives, because they've been taught all their lives that they can't do anything without government.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. To see that difference, to see that the benefits that come quickly from this, and to get that aha moment that they can do it. They can sustain themselves, and the other people that are free can help sustain them better than the government could with their contributions to the world. That's what's going to be realized. And then it's a good point, Bill, about it being a smooth. It's going to be a positive, a lot of positive feelings that generate
Mm-hmm.
over time. It's like a cancer patient suddenly having the cure, where I know that's a big jump, or like people that are dealing with diabetes and they suddenly cut down their sugar. That might not be exact like accurate, but um, solving the issue, their bodies are going to get healthy. This plan will help the body, which is the society we live in, get better. And when that's, it's a lot easier to, it's a usually a more pleasant experience, no matter what you're going on mentally. When your body's in good shape, you know your body's
Mm-hmm.
doing okay. You can deal with a
Yeah.
lot more.
Yeah, the problem, unfortunately, is that freedom is scary. You know, and
Yeah,
we,
it
you
is.
know, basically the kind of world we live in now, even though it's bad for us as individuals, what's bad for us is hidden well below, you know, the perceived positive aspects. You know,
Yes, right.
the ideas of order and, you know, that it's not chaos. That, you know, the first thing people say when you say we don't need government, they say, but then there'll be chaos. It'll be horrible, you know. And they don't understand, because they can't see the idea of people cooperating voluntarily, because
I
they don't. I think it comes down to a matter of trust. They don't trust other people.
That's what I've thought about that. And Bill, if there were no laws, I still reckon that you wouldn't, come over to my house and kill me, or
Yeah, or take
shoot
your
me out of
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you did, you'd be in the long term, you'd be hurting yourself
Yep.
because you're losing our relationship, and then it'll work itself out in the long run. And the majority of people do that same thing. It's the 98% of people do that, and then you have the 2% that, yeah, they are criminals and they do initiate force, but all the time.
Yeah, but technology, you know, people will say, well, this is a problem, let's solve it, rather than
Yeah.
you know, today government says this is a problem, let's study it.
Yeah,
Whereas individuals will say, this is a problem, it's affecting me, I'm going to solve it. I'm going to take care of
definitely.
it so it stops affecting me negatively, you know. And that's going to be the difference, because then that person won't have to go and get, you know, 20 permits and fill out 500 forms to
Yeah,
create this solution to whatever the problem is, including the
right.
problem of people who, because of their, you know, either because let's face it, there are people who are born with defective brains, you
Yeah,
know,
yep,
brains that don't, you know, that don't allow them to do what's best for them. Because the bottom line is, what's best for me is what's best for all of us. What's best for you, you know, what's best for somebody on the other side of the world that I've never met, you know. That's the bottom line, is you, if you think about it really logically,
hmm,
you know, hurting other
right.
people eventually hurts you, because you lose the possibility of those relationships. Plus, those people are going to be trying to hurt you in return.
Huge concept, Bill. It's so simple, but it's true when you really rationally look at it and go through the logic of it. And if people have freedom, that's helping you ultimately. They're going to help themselves, which a happy individual in this world ends up not weighing you down. In all in the respects, you may even, let's say, a relationship, a girlfriend or boyfriend. If the girlfriend needs to separate from you and hurt you, she's not hurting you. She's going after what makes her feel better, let's say, and that's going to help you in the long run. Maybe it hurts immediately, but in the long run, it's going to help more because she will be happy. So she won't be giving you any. She won't be removing your chance for happiness, and she will have a better chance of doing things in this world that will only complement whatever you're trying to do that really floats your boat. So it's a win-win always with true freedom, you know.
Yes, I was going to move on to the next section, but the conversation continued, and I think it was wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and finish this part and move on to the section, the part of the show where we discuss how you can help create the 12 Visions world. Once again, we'll go through the basic details of helping to create the 12 Visions world. Basically, it's to get involved in one way or another, either even as simply as telling other people about the 12 Visions world and why you think it's a great idea, and then from there you can just get involved in more and more ways, either by volunteering to help in your state get the 12 Visions Party to share the ideas of the 12 Visions world, and also, the way we're going to transform our government from what it is now to a protection-only service that is paid for voluntarily is by getting people into office at all levels, but especially at the level of president. And that's what we're planning to do. We're working on growing the number of people who want to support this, and we're working on growing the number of people who want to be involved in this. And that's, we're working toward the future. We don't have the resources now to to run a candidate for president this year, but we're working toward a future where we do have the resources, the people, the money, all of that.
We have also a business plan. This is really locked down. We have a national platform that lays out what we're trying to do so we can help market this idea. And we have a business plan in all the states to get these people elected. So we have a plan. We have generated funds. And this thing, guys, if you like what you're hearing and hear this idea of no initiatory force and a better standard of living for everybody, including yourself, all you got to do is, like Bill said, get in contact with us. We're going to share the details, but in some way or another, you can just support it just because you like it, that concept, and see where it goes. But there are people already. I've been here so long, and I know that we've laid a lot of groundwork to make it easy for people, so this can work. That's what it's about. It's just to get initiatory force out of legislation. And that's what we're working on. So you can, speed it up and help it if you like what you hear, and we can do it. We can make it happen.
Yes, and that's what we're doing. We're all organizing this so that everyone who wants to help in whatever way they want to help will have a place where they can put in their help, whether it's physical or financial or whatever. And also, if you want to help make this change, you can become someone who would run for office. Everyone, who has that inclination and understands the ideas that we're talking about should consider it. And that's where we're headed. We don't want to, this isn't going to happen if we just elect a president,
Right.
because we've seen the current president and actually how little he has actually accomplished, because basically the Congress decided that no matter what he did, they weren't going to support it.
Yeah.
So
Our primary goal right now, as I see it, is we're out there to communicate to people that they do have a choice, and they have another choice between other than the two political parties that are presently running the show. There are other things out there, and all they need to do is get involved, and in time we can change it. Yeah.
And but the point I was making was we're going to need more people in office than just the president. We're going to need people in Congress. We're going to need people involved at the state level and also at the local level. So, don't think, well, I really don't want to run for president, so I'm not going to get involved. You can get involved at any level that you're interested in.
Yeah, even if it's getting signatures for us, or it's telling people, if you're an artist, creating some work that shares some of this ideas to people. That's supporting. That's helping bring this for you and for all of us faster. This whole concept that we're trying to pull off.
I've said since the beginning that in order to bring about and create the 12 Visions world, we're going to need time, people, and money. And the more people and money we have, the less time it's going to take. That's the bottom line.
Right. I can't wait. So excited. And how do they contact us, Bill?
Okay. If you want to become involved with the 12 Visions Party, the place to go is the 12 Visions Party national website, which is tvpnj.org. And once you're there, there is a place that you can go to sign up to volunteer, and also, and once you do that, they will put you in contact with the organization that exists in your state, or if there is not an organization, they will put you in contact with other people who are interested in creating an organization in their state to represent the 12 Visions Party.
Right.
And that's the main way to get involved. As far as getting involved in New Jersey, I mean, you can contact any of us. I mean, I'm happy to put my email address out there so anybody can contact me. It's WHUNSICKER@gmail.com, and I will find out what you're interested in doing, and we as a group will get together and figure out how that can best help us move forward for what we're planning to do. Also, you can help by supporting this show, by either talking to other people about it, watching it, or by supporting the show financially, because to me this is a great resource to get the information out there.
Right, and it has. A lot of people are viewing this page and listening to these, listening to the videos, and it's soon to get to podcast, right? That's what you're working towards.
That's what we're working toward, to make this mainly a podcast, because it's a lot easier for someone to listen to an audio recording anywhere, no matter what they're doing.
Right.
As long as it doesn't interfere with what they're doing, than it is for someone to watch a video.
Great idea.
So, and that's going to be the main focus of this show, is to be a podcast, an audio show, with the addition of the video for those who want to view that. But that's not going to be the primary purpose now. The primary purpose, as we continue to develop it, is to be a podcast that people can take with them anywhere and listen to.
And I know this is in New Jersey. There is an event coming up. This is a time-sensitive event coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We have big events that we put together, and if you get involved or you contact us, we'll let you know what events we have going on in New Jersey. We're really kicking up. We have a state convention coming up. We're trying to do these big events maybe annually, and over time, much more often. But there's a big state convention up at the time of this recording, March 26, 2016, in New Jersey. We're putting together a big convention for the state, and you can get tickets and more information about it at also TVPNJ SC, and that stands for 12 Visions Party of New Jersey State Convention .eventbrite.com. That's EVENTBRITE.com if you'd like to get tickets. And then you could jumpstart your education level also, because you'll meet all the people involved. We're bringing together as many people that support the TVP and are actively involved in one place, so you can get a feel for it and see the progress. It's all going to be what strides we're making to make this happen.
Yes. And the bottom line here is the only way we're going to do this is together. The only way we're going to create the world we want to live in is by working together, cooperating. We're not going to get the world we want by waiting for others to do it for us.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's true. And everybody's. I think we've waited long enough. All of the world.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. We've lived. I basically have seen the world become less and less free over my entire life, and I'm 56 years old, and I can remember in my childhood and in my teenage years being a lot more free, a lot less, people telling me what I can and can't do, and people taking so much of what I work so hard to produce.
Right, and that's where I see the issue, and we're not alone. There's so many of you out there feeling the same way, and you got a choice, guys. This is a lifeboat. Grab onto it, because we can change it. We can change it together, so very exciting.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up now. I want to thank Bob McCaffrey for joining me on the show. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for having me, and it's been a very exciting show and very informative. Thank you.
And I also want to thank Sage Katakura for joining me on the show. Thank you very much, Sage.
Thank you, Bill, for having me. It's a pleasure always doing it.
And I also want to thank anyone who watches or listens to this show, and I greatly appreciate that. You're the reason that we're doing this. We're not doing this just to hear each other talk. If you have any questions, please send them to cnwshow@gmail.com. You can see previous episodes at www.tocreateanewworld.blogspot.com. You can like us on Facebook, just search for CNW Show, or you can join our Google Plus community, also search for CNW Show. You can support the show by telling your family and friends about it. You can also support the show by going to www.patreon.com/creatinganewworld and pledging $1 or more an episode. All opinions expressed on the show are the sole responsibility of the individual participants and do not represent the Neothink Society, the 12 Visions Party, or author Mark Hamilton. Creating a New World is a production of Integrated Values, LLC. I wish everyone wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom.